what excites me most and what should excite all of us about what's happening in Africa is not one single project. It's the pattern. It's what is happening in this moment. For generations, Africa has occupied a very specific place in the global economy. The continent exported raw materials. Everyone else captured the value. Africa would export crude oil. Someone else will refine it. Africa will export cocoa. Someone else will make chocolate and turn it into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Africa exported the talent, and someone else built the companies. For decades, Africa sat at the very beginning of the value chain, while everyone else captured the wealth at the end of it. Africa powered China's industrial rise. China would not be where it is today without Africa.
My people, over the past year, I've spent hundreds of hours researching, traveling across Africa, interviewing leaders, entrepreneurs, investors, and historians, all in search of one answer. What is really happening in Africa? Because depending on who you ask, Africa is either a continent in crisis or the next trillion-dollar frontier. The truth, I believe, is far more interesting than either narrative. And I shared my findings in my 2026 State of Africa report, which is available on my website. But recently, I had the opportunity to deliver this as a keynote at the TSP Live Conference in Atlanta. And I'm excited to bring you my full presentation today. Now, let me take a second to tell you a bit about TSP Live because I was really blown away by what I experienced there. This is a platform founded by powerhouse entrepreneurs Lamar and Ronnie Tyler. Over the years, they've built one of the most impactful ecosystems for Black business owners in the United States, a community dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build wealth, scale businesses, and create lasting legacies. I was thrilled to be in the room to share what I believe is one of the biggest economic shifts of our time and why it matters, not just for Africa, but for Black entrepreneurs and diaspora investors. In my presentation, I challenged some of the biggest misconceptions about Africa, explain why this particular moment is different from anything we've seen before, and share why I believe the next generation of Black wealth specifically will be built by reconnecting what history separated. Whether you're an entrepreneur, investor, professional, student, or simply someone who cares about the future of Africa and its relationship with the diaspora, I believe this conversation will challenge the way that you think and help you begin your journey of tapping into the opportunities available on the continent right now. So grab a notebook, settle in, and let me know your biggest takeaway in the comments as you watch. And if this keynote inspires you to move beyond learning and start experiencing Africa for yourself, I'd love to invite you to join me on our homecoming tour to Ghana this February 2027. Together, we'll explore many of the ideas, opportunities, and connections that I talk about in this speech, not from a distance, but on the ground through immersive experiences and meaningful conversations with the people helping shape Africa's future. Click on the Homecoming Tour link in the description to learn more, complete the form, and someone from my team will reach out to you with more details. I hope to see you there. Now let's get into it.
There has always been this narrative or this lie about the wealth and the riches and the beauty of Africa. And that's why I'm so happy that people like Jay Cameron, where is he in the audience? Jay Cameron, Freddie Taylor, Shaniqua Sparks, myself, Ronnie and Lamar, we are committed to just going back and really learning about our culture and taking others with us. So if you've never been to the continent of Africa, you got to get there. It's a beautiful place to be. And our next speaker is all about what's happening, how we can be a part of that enterprise and that e-commerce. And so I'm so excited. We're going to watch her video and then bring her to the stage.
My people, you know, we've been told the same story about Africa for decades. That Africa is poor. Africa is broke. Africa needs aid. Africa needs loans. That Africa needs saving. Africa is entering a defining investment moment. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. Its population will double by 2050, and it is entering global markets at the exact moment that the rules are being rewritten.
Committed to elevating and helping build the next generation of Black stars.
The question is no longer, what did colonialism do to us? The question becomes, what are we choosing to keep? Let's be honest. Most of us are watching from the sidelines. We're reading about it. We're debating it. But we're not in it.
Doing away with these borders is the only thing that will give us the standard of living that Africans deserve.
And the truth is, you cannot fully understand Africa from the sidelines. You have to step into it.
Can you stand to your feet and welcome our Motherland Ambassador, Sandra Babu-Boateng?
Thank you. Time because and I really want you to pay attention to what I'm saying, because we hear a lot about Africa, but my goal is that by the end of my presentation today, my speech, and I don't have any slides, I'm a little bit different, but I want you to follow the story that I'm telling you, because I want to take you on a journey that will change your mindset about what Africa is and what it means, especially for you and I today. So let me start by taking you to a day in Ghana. It was March 6, 1957. I'm sure many of us in this room were not born. But a young Martin Luther King Jr., he stood in Accra, Ghana, alongside a name that I'm sure many of you have heard, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And the occasion was very historic. After decades of colonial rule, Ghana had become the first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence. And you see, yes, that deserves, yes. You see, for many people in the room at the time, it was a political moment. But for Nkrumah, it was so much more, well, for both Nkrumah and King, it was so much more than that. Nkrumah said that political freedom alone was not enough, that a flag without economic power was just symbolism. A nation could be politically independent, yet still economically dependent. And Martin Luther King Jr., he understood this too. You know, in America, he spent most of his life fighting for civil rights and economic justice because he understood something profound, that freedom without economic power is meaningless. Now, here's where I really need you to lean in, right? When King returned from Ghana, he delivered a sermon titled The Birth of a New Nation. How many of you have heard of The Birth of a New Nation? Yeah. Now, most people remember that sermon as a celebration of Ghana's independence, you know, the birth of a new nation. But buried within that sermon was something else that we tend to miss. King made a direct appeal. He gave Black America a challenge. He made an appeal that was a recognition that the destiny of Africa and the destiny of Black people around the world were connected. And in that sermon, he said, and I quote, "It is my hope that African Americans will go to Africa as immigrants, right there to the Gold Coast, which was Ghana, and lend their technical assistance. For there is great need and wealth on this continent. There are rich opportunities there." My people, nearly 70 years later, I believe that we are still living inside the question that both men tried to ask at that time. How do Black people achieve economic freedom? And where will the next chapter of that freedom be written? Now, let me ask you all a direct question. How many of you have heard the phrase Africa rising? Raise your hand. Africa is rising. How many? Now, let me tell you something. I've been hearing this phrase since I was a teenager, okay? And now I'm old enough to have a child who is almost a teenager, and we're still talking about Africa rising. And have you ever stopped and wondered why Africa has been rising for decades? Why does it always seem to be on the verge of becoming something, but never quite arriving? I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. China transformed itself pretty much within about a generation. So did Singapore. So did South Korea. So why does Africa seem permanently stuck in the future? I have a theory. I don't believe that Africa hasn't risen because it lacks talent or resources or entrepreneurs or ideas. I believe one of the main reasons Africa hasn't risen yet is because its diaspora, its people who left, have not returned home. One of its greatest assets remains largely disconnected from its development, from its rise. More specifically, those of you in the room today, entrepreneurs, the builders, the visionaries. You know, I'm not saying that Africa needs saving, right? That Africa needs to be saved. No, that's not what I'm saying. Africa does not need saving. But because history has separated two groups of people whose economic futures may be more connected than either one of us realize. We need each other more than we realize. So let me put this into perspective for you. Black America today represents an estimated $5 trillion in economic power. If Black America were a country, it would rank the third largest economy in the world. The third. Yeah, only after the United States and China. Did you know that? I want you to think about that for a second. Yet, very little of that wealth, that capital, that expertise, that investment is finding its way to Africa. That is not something we should be proud of. It's a missed opportunity, not just for Africa. It's a missed opportunity for Black America. Because while many of us are searching for the next frontier of business opportunity and wealth creation, that frontier is already here. We're here today talking about how to take our businesses to the next level, while Africa is waiting for us, a continent that is untapped, with opportunity just sitting there waiting for us to return. So what exactly is changing, right? Because when people hear, Africa opportunity, they often imagine one country, one investment, one industry. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I spent the whole of last year investigating Africa, studying Africa, because I wanted to really understand the moment that we're in, beyond the headlines, and what it means for us. And my findings shocked me. I documented many of them in my State of Africa Report 2026, which has become a bestseller because it provides a lens, a way of looking at Africa that you would never see in Western media, or any other media for that matter. And so I want to give you a little preview of what I discovered. You see, what excites me most, and what should excite all of us about what's happening in Africa, is not one single project. It's the pattern. It's what is happening in this moment. For generations, Africa has occupied a very specific place in the global economy. The continent exported raw materials. Everyone else captured the value. Africa would export crude oil. Someone else will refine it. Africa will export cocoa. Someone else will make chocolate and turn it into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Africa exported the talent, and someone else built the companies. For decades, Africa sat at the very beginning of the value chain, while everyone else captured the wealth at the end of it. Africa powered China's industrial rise. China would not be where it is today without Africa. So that has been the story that is beginning to change. And that change may create one of the greatest wealth-building opportunities of our generation. Africa is moving from extraction to ownership. Let's talk about what's happening in Nigeria right now. I know when you look at the news, we hear about Trump and his Christmas Day bombings, right? And all the insecurity and that's happening. But something transformational is happening in Nigeria right now. For decades, Nigeria produced crude oil. It was Africa's largest oil producers. But it exported most of that oil to be refined and brought back to the continent. And I want you to think about that. One of the largest oil-producing nations on earth, exporting raw and then spending nearly $10 billion a year importing refined oil. It doesn't make sense. And then came the Dangote refinery, which is disrupting that model right now. Yeah. Today, Dangote came, and he's building the largest single-train refinery in the world that is sitting on African soil right now. And as we speak, because of the war, the Iran war, which has disrupted, supply chain, he is now the largest exporter of fuel jet on the planet right now. Do you hear what I'm saying? The refinery hasn't been open for more than 2 years, but when opportunity met preparation, it created a company that is now valued at over $50 billion, just this refinery. And he's getting ready to IPO in September, where you have an opportunity to participate in that. Let's talk about Ghana. For centuries, I'm from Ghana. Any Ghanaians in the house? We won the World Cup. We didn't win. I'm kind of speaking it into existence, but we won our match yesterday against Panama. So yay, Ghana. Okay. But a lot is happening in Ghana right now. The government is trying to restructure how their gold is purchased, how it's processed, and monetized so that more value remains inside the country. Again, the same story: ownership, value addition, economic leverage. Let's talk about Burkina Faso, which I've spent the past year, the Sahel, right? The AES. I've spent the last year reporting on the revolution that is happening in the Sahel. They won't call it that in Western media, but it is a revolution that is happening in the Sahel, in the AES. And while most headlines will focus on the politics and the coup, the government is investing heavily in dams, irrigation systems, reservoirs, and agricultural production. Why? Because nations that cannot feed themselves cannot fully control their destiny. Again, the same story: ownership. Now, I could go on and on and on with these examples, and if y'all let me, we will be here all day, okay? But the point is, when you zoom out, you begin to realize that these are not isolated stories. These are signs of a seismic shift, a continent that is attempting to move up the value chain. And this is not just any continent that we're talking about. This is one of the wealthiest continents on earth, sitting on trillions of dollars worth of natural resources. Ever wonder why they keep exploiting Africa? They keep taking so much from the continent, but we never run out. It's like we have infinite supply. That's just how much God loves us. He gave us infinite supply of natural resources. And whenever a society moves up the value chain, what happens? Wealth is created, massive wealth. That's what happened in China. That's what happened in Singapore. It happened in South Korea. But the question that I want all of us to think about is, who will participate in the value being created? Who? Who will capture this opportunity? Now, I know many of you have heard about Africa's potential for years, right? But it's important that you understand that this moment that I'm talking about is different from anything that we've seen in the past. Why? Because several powerful trends are converging at the very same time. And moments like this just don't happen often. Definitely not in our lifetime. And the opportunity is not simply that Africa is growing, right? Lots of places are growing. The opportunity is that Africa is transforming at the exact same time that the world is transforming. And when transformation and timing collide, fortunes are made. Wealth is built. Nobody gets rich after the opportunity becomes obvious, right? The wealth is created by the people who recognize the shift before everyone else sees it. And I'll tell you what, we might be a little too late because China is already there. They've been there for decades, building, giving out loans. China has been there. We may be a little too late. So what makes this moment different? I want to quickly walk you through a few of them. The first is demographics. And for every business owner in this room, I want you to hear what I'm about to say. By 2050, 1 out of every 4 people on earth will be African. Think about what that means. Africa is becoming the center of global population growth. That means workers. It means consumers. It means entrepreneurs. It means business owners. It means home buyers. It means patients. It means students. It means travelers, customers. Every business in this room ultimately depends on one thing, right? People, customers. And the future of people is increasingly African. The second trend is resources. The world right now is undergoing one of the largest economic transitions in modern history. Artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, data centers, advanced manufacturing. Every one of these industries depends on one thing: critical minerals. And many of those minerals are found in Africa. Today, countries across the continent are beginning to ask a very different question. how much of that value can we keep? And that question is creating entirely new industries, entirely new supply chains, entirely new opportunities for you. And the third trend is infrastructure. Yeah. Across the continent, countries are investing heavily in roads, in ports, in industrial parks, in logistics corridors, in power generation, and digital connectivity. Why? Because infrastructure is what turns potential into productivity. It's what allows businesses to scale. It's what attracts investments. It's what creates ecosystems where opportunity can flourish. And finally, there is the trend that matters most to us here today, and which I mentioned earlier on, which is capital, right? Specifically, Black capital. Again, today, Black America represents nearly $5 trillion in economic power, but very little of that is being invested on the continent. What that means, again, is that the largest concentration of Black economic power exists outside the largest concentration of Black people. And for most of modern history, these two engines have operated separately. But I believe it's time for us to change that. Who is ready to change that? Because what happens, and I want you to imagine this, right? What happens when African markets, African talent, African innovation, and African resources become connected to Black American capital, expertise, entrepreneurship, and networks? What happens when we stop thinking of Africa and the diaspora as separate economic stories? What happens? I believe that the answer to that question will become one of the defining economic shifts of our generation. Yeah. Now, whenever I give talks like this, right, someone inevitably comes up to me afterward and says, okay, Sandra, that was powerful. You've convinced me. But what exactly am I supposed to do, right? And I understand that question because when many people hear doing business in Africa, they immediately think about, like I said, building a refinery or opening a factory or investing millions of dollars. But let me tell you, most of the opportunities available to the people in this room have nothing to do with oil, mining, or manufacturing. They have to do with what many of you already do today, every single day. Services, knowledge, expertise, relationships. Africa is experiencing one of the fastest business expansions in the world. Thousands of new companies are being created. New industries are emerging, middle classes are growing, governments are digitizing, corporations are expanding, and every one of those developments creates demand. Demand for accountants, demand for lawyers, demand for consultants, demand for HR professionals, demand for executive coaches, demand for staffing firms, project managers, demand for people who just know how to solve a problem, a complicated problem, right? In other words, what I'm saying is that many of the skills you already possess are becoming increasingly valuable on the continent and is creating multi-million and potentially billion-dollar companies. If a company in Accra wants to scale internationally, they may need branding expertise. If a startup in Nairobi is growing rapidly, they will need HR systems. If a healthcare organization in Lagos wants to improve patient outcomes, they may need training and operational support. If a government agency wants to digitize services, they will need tech partners. And these are real things that are happening, real challenges, real knowledge gaps that are on the continent right now. The question is not whether Africa needs expertise. The question is whether you are positioning yourself to provide it. And here's what excites me most. Unlike previous generations, you don't necessarily need a physical office to begin. Many of you can start building relationships and servicing clients across borders from where you sit today, online. And the second opportunity that I really want to touch on is partnership. And this may be one of the most important because, one of the misconceptions about Africa is that success will require you to know everything, right? But it doesn't. What you need is a trusted local partner. Across Africa, there are entrepreneurs who are building incredible businesses who understand the market far better than you will. The opportunity isn't to replace them, right? The opportunity is to partner with them, to bring together your expertise, your networks, your capital, your experience with your market knowledge and execution capabilities. I know in America, when we talk about investing in startups, we're thinking writing $100,000 checks. But in Africa, $5,000, $10,000 can make a difference in a business. A small business can help them scale to the next level. So that's how I want you to think. Not the scale of what you're able to do, but what your investment is able to help that local entrepreneur, what your expertise, what your mentorship, what your training is able to help them do. And the third opportunity is investments, right? Even if you're not ready to, have a business or partner with someone, investing in startups. A lot of people don't know that Africa actually has a stock market, a thriving one too, that is currently outperforming the S&Ps and every other, global stock market. A lot of people don't know that. Right? Investing in small businesses, in real estate, whatever sector you're passionate about, you can find something to invest in. But if you remember nothing at all from today, I want you to remember this, right? That the African opportunity is not only about what comes out of the ground. We're trained to think that way, but it's not. The future will not just be about what comes out of the ground. It is increasingly about knowledge, about what exists between our ears, as I say, knowledge, expertise, relationships, innovation. And those happen to be some of the most valuable assets in this room right now. So as I prepare to close today, I want to return to where we started, back to that day in Accra, back to MLK, back to Kwame Nkrumah. Both men understood something that remains true today. Political freedom was never the destination. No. Economic freedom was. And freedom without ownership, without opportunity, without access to wealth creation is incomplete. Yeah. And in many ways, that is still the challenge before us. Not only in Africa, not only in America, but across the global Black community, in the Caribbean, everywhere. You see, I believe fundamentally that every generation receives a different assignment. Our grandparents fought for our freedom. They fought for our survival. Many of our parents fought for access. And because of their sacrifices, we're sitting in rooms today that we could only dream of. We own businesses, we employ people, we build wealth. We have options today that they didn't. But the question that I want to leave with you today is, what is our assignment? What is history asking of us today? And I don't believe that our generation's assignment is simply access, right? I believe our assignment is ownership. And increasingly, I believe that future will require us to think beyond borders. Not because America doesn't matter, not because, there aren't opportunities here. Many of us have built our lives and businesses here, yes. But because the most successful entrepreneurs understand that opportunity is not confined by geography. It shouldn't. They go where growth is. They go where markets are expanding. They go where transformation is happening. And right now, that place is in Africa. And perhaps that's why this conversation feels so personal to me, because I often think about my children. I think about the world that they will inherit. I think about the opportunities that they will have. And I think about the opportunities that they may miss if we fail to recognize the moment that we're living in. One day our children would ask, what did we do during one of the most significant periods of economic transformation in modern African history? Yeah. They will ask whether we paid attention, whether we participated, whether we invested, whether we helped shape the future, or whether we simply watched from the sidelines, from the distance, and watched China take over the continent. And my hope is that our answer will be that, no, we showed up. Yeah, we showed up as we always did for our community, for our people. That we crossed the bridge, that we reconnected what history separated. Because the truth is, the next frontier of Black wealth is not a country, no. It is not a city. It is not even a continent. It is a connection. That's what I believe. A connection between Africa and its diaspora, a connection between talent and opportunity, a connection between history and destiny, a connection between what our ancestors endured and what our children have the opportunity to inherit because of the decisions that we make today. And so my challenge to all of you is simple. Please don't leave saying, oh, that was, interesting, or that was a great talk. I want you to leave here asking yourself one question. What is my Africa strategy? Did you hear that? Who do I need to meet? What market do I need to learn? What partnership do I need to explore? What opportunity do I need to investigate? What is my first step now? Not next year, not someday, maybe later, right now. And the best part of it is you don't have to do it alone. Yeah, you have Tyler Media and PanaGenius. We are here to partner with you to think about how to tap into what is truly the greatest economic opportunity of our time. And so thank you very much for having me. And I'm looking forward to meeting.
So what we're going to do, we're going to transition. The team is going to come up, put down chairs. We're going to do a brief fireside chat and then take questions. Y'all got questions? Okay, so we're going to do it. Please, one more time, give it up. Was that amazing or was that amazing?
Thank you.
All right. And let me share while we're waiting for them to come up and switch the set out. Let me share with you one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation. Probably goes back about 3 or 4 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago, we had Matthew Knowles in, Beyonce's dad, and he talked about the fact that he knew someone that was in London doing exactly what we do. So we connected with Raphael Sofalouk, many of y'all have seen come over the last few years here, and what he does at UK Black Business Week. And as he did that, we went over there, right? We've been taking entrepreneurs over to London, to the UK. Thank you. We've been taking entrepreneurs over to London and the UK, and as we did that, we saw that they had as much, if not a greater need for the same information that you do here in the United States. There we go, right? And then we started bringing entrepreneurs back from the UK back with us. There we go. But then we went to Ghana. And we did an event in Ghana, and we saw that the need for what we teach as TSP was there as well. And then we said, hey, how can we get this conversation to be global? So we've been ever since committed to having global conversations with y'all here inside of TSP. And as we talk about how can we think bigger, how can we go broader, that's exactly what this is meant to do.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Great.
So I had a few questions I wanted to ask.
Yes.
And then we'll come out to y'all. So again, thank you, everybody. Did y'all enjoy that one more time? Please. Now, if you don't know, I need everyone to go to YouTube, right? Go to PanaGenius TV and subscribe, because this is my CNN. This is my ABC. This is my CBS. This is what I watch every day to find out what's going on in the continent. And first of all, you and your team do an amazing, incredible job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of reporting what's happening.
Thank you.
And they do it in a way, they report it, they break it down, they tell you who the players are, they tell you what you need to know, they tell you the opportunity, and they do it It's what Pepper talked about. When we can have businesses, we can, deliver to clients, we can serve people, but we can also do it with conscience and heart.
Yeah,
And I feel like that's what you come across. So thank you for that, first of all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So one thing I wanted to ask you is, with your show, The Breakdown, you founded it and started because you said there was a gap.
Yeah.
What was that gap and what was that need that you saw to actually launch it?
Well, it was the narrative gap, right? And there's an African proverb that says that until the lion learns how to speak, the story will always glorify the hunter. And, this idea, this philosophy has pretty much guided much of my career and the work that I do, and my commitment, my passion for amplifying, Africa's story, the real story, right? The truth, not just what is told to us in the media. And even going beyond that to really think about how we start connecting the dots, right? So, connecting Black America to Africa and the Caribbean. There's a narrative gap. And, I always say that when I look at the media today, there's no shortage of headlines about Africa. I think we can all agree.
Yes.
But what is missing is context. And what I saw is that increasingly people were hungry for stories that went beyond the headlines. They wanted more substance, okay? I don't just want to hear that there's a coup happening in Burkina Faso. What does this mean? Why is a coup happening? Why are the people rejecting, democracy? Because there's a story there, right? Or not that, Trump just made this policy decision, but what does that mean for Nairobi? What does it mean for Haiti, right? Going beyond that. Or even that, Ghana is nationalizing its gold. Okay, what does it mean for the entrepreneur sitting in Atlanta, right? So I wanted to create a platform that goes beyond the headlines and really help people understand what is happening in Africa today and what it means for them. And I created it because it just wasn't there. And I think we're in an age where it's really hard to know what to trust, what information to trust, right? And so we wanted to build a show that would become a reliable source for people who are hungry to understand the motherland better, but to also understand what it means for them, no matter where they are in the world today.
I love it. Yeah, young boy, give it up. You mentioned earlier Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, right?
Yes.
Ghana's first president post-independence. And you went and actually interviewed his daughter, Samia Nkrumah. And you said that after the camera stopped rolling, there was something that stayed with you. And I want to quote what she said.
Yeah.
We did not fail because the vision was wrong. We failed because we were not ready to protect it.
Oof. Yeah. Yes.
like when you heard, it is deep. When you heard that, why did that stick with you in such a way?
First of all, every time I hear the name Kwame Nkrumah, I get goosebumps, right? Because that man was ahead of his time.
Yes.
He was a prophet in so many ways. And when you understand what is happening, or you see what's happening in Africa today, you will understand why what he did back then mattered. He saw ahead, 50 years ahead. And that interview, I've had the opportunity to interview some just some great interviews over my career, but that, I've never experienced anything like that. It was really, really powerful. And I think what, my takeaway from that conversation, when Samia said that was, we couldn't protect the vision because we couldn't really agree on what the vision was in the first. That was number one. And, the Bible says that a house divided against itself will not stand, right? It's a place of desolation. And when you think about Africa today, even back then, after our, political independence, our leaders, our Pan-African leaders, right, could not agree on what Pan-Africanism was. They couldn't agree on what the vision for a united Africa would be. They were split into two groups. You had the Monrovia group, and you had the Casablanca group. The Casablanca group was led by Kwame Nkrumah, and he believed in immediate continental unification. They believed that there is no economic sovereignty, no state sovereignty without unity, continental unity They understood something called economies of scale, apparently, right? Leverage, that is where power comes from, collective power. That's how you build that. And they were advocating for immediate unification of the continent. And then you had the other group who said, no, this has to be gradual. We don't want to unite first. We need to build state, capacity. So they were for state sovereignty first. So the vision for unity could not even be agreed on back then. And we're still here 70 years later and can't agree on that. And then I think the second part of that I started to think about is Africa is not short on vision, great vision and ideas. What is missing is execution. What is missing is the institutions needed to protect those ideas. What is needed is the civic culture, is the governance, the capital needed to execute that vision. I just had an interview with the African Union ambassador to the United Nations, and I was shocked to find out that the African Union is actually primarily funded by Europe. How does that work? How do you advocate for the interests of your countries on the continent if your institution is funded by another continent? Right. Just didn't, But those are some of the contradictions of Africa, and that we're still grappling with today, right? And so I think that's what Samia tried to say. We didn't protect it because we didn't see the value in what Nkrumah and the likes were really trying to advocate for. And unfortunately, 50, 60, 70 years down the line, we're seeing the effects of that.
Before I go to the audience, I wanted to talk about Dangote.
Yeah.
And I was personally embarrassed in myself probably 6, 7 years ago. We were having a conversation in our Traffic Sales and Profit Facebook group. And the conversation came up about who are the wealthiest, black people. And 2 or 3 people, it may have been 70, 80 comments, but 2 or 3 people dropped the name, Dangote. Yes. So I said, who is this that they're talking about? And what I found is that they were talking about the richest black man in the world.
Yep.
And most black Americans here in this country have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
But since then, outlets like yours that are sharing what he's doing, the history that he's making.
Yeah.
And the history that's to be made as he takes that refinery you talked about public.
Yeah.
In a time when everybody's talking about SpaceX going public and what is the SpaceX IPO, I was about to say, this is not a reflection of TSP, but I'm TSP, so it is. On behalf of TSP and Lamar Tyler, it's not a reflection of PanaGenius. On behalf of Lamar and TSP, I could care less about giving Elon Musk more money.
Sir, listen.
I'm not gonna give a damn about Elon Musk because Elon Musk don't give a damn about me. But to know that there's a black man on this earth that has an IPO that is historic because he's opening up in multiple markets, right? I believe it's 4, but multiple markets across the continent. One of the things you said to me, which I'm sure a lot in the room, like myself, previously were not aware of, is that we can participate in those markets.
Yes.
Can you just speak to that a little bit about the opportunity and what that looks like?
I mean, it is massive. And, it's, as you said, historic. And Dangote represents what happens when you bet on Africa, right? A lot of people say, well, he's a monopolist. Well, he was the one who was not afraid to take the risk. And he's benefiting from it because when everyone else was investing in, startups in Silicon Valley, he said, I'm going to put everything that I have into the continent because I believe that it is worth the risk. And he is reaping the benefits of that. And we're still complaining. But anyway, right? Back to your point. He is showcasing what is possible for this generation. And this IPO is the largest in African history, but what he is doing is really creating a pathway for the diaspora to invest as well. It's still not as easy as we would like it to be, because you still have to register through a local broker and all of that. It's a bit complicated, but For those who are really motivated, and you should be, the point is you can invest in this IPO, right? And now that's an opportunity for a tech founder in this room, right, to build an app like a Robin Hood of Africa, right, to enable us to quickly invest in these stocks. But we'll talk about that next time, right? But it's an opportunity. And so you can invest in this IPO. Bloomberg recently valued the IPO at $50 billion with a B. And that's just a starting point because he has plans to expand it, right? He's expanding into Uganda, into Ethiopia. And so this is massive. And beyond, the investment opportunity, it's a mindset shift. It's about the possibility of what happens when you invest in Africa. And he's showing young people everywhere that Africa is worth the risk. I hope that everyone will, I've done multiple episodes on that on my show. I'm hoping to have a sit-down interview with Dangote recently, soon, so we can get more information. But this, if nothing at all, this is an opportunity that I think you all should look into, research on your own, and if you can, be a part of this historic, opportunity. Yeah.
Awesome. Let's start on this side with Serena.
Thank you so much for this history lesson and current lesson. My name is Zarina Elamine. I'm the founder of the Legacy Story Keepers, and we believe in the African proverb that says, when an elder dies, a library burns. So we're looking to preserve our elders' life stories and books before they are lost. So my question is about this age-old wisdom. I've been taking women to Africa since 2016. My 13-year-old son decided that he wanted to move to Africa. Wow. He's now 20. So he has been in Africa for 7 years. He just moved to Ghana. He's starting his first business there. So we're looking to strengthen connections between Africa and the diaspora, right? But how do we ensure that we're not just exchanging capital and commerce, but also preserving and sharing the age-old cultural wisdom, survival strategies, traditions, that have sustained our people for millennia and can contribute to our collective positive evolution?
Oh, great question. And first of all, it's great to hear that your son, has made that move. That's really amazing. And I think a testament to you, right? You took your children at a young age and they decided to stay. That's very powerful. I do think that as we continue, one of the things that I say about visiting Africa or, traveling to Africa or engaging Africa is it has to move beyond symbolism, right? And so I do think that as more African Americans travel to Africa, that exchange is going to start to happen naturally, right? As people back home are receptive to, the new ideas and the new traditions that they're being exposed to and vice versa. But I do also think that there needs to be more intentionality behind it, especially in our education system, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we have an opportunity to move the needle. Let's be honest, Africa's education system needs a complete revamp. Completely, because it is still based on Western system, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that needs to change back there. And let's be honest, Black history or Black schools, or not Black schools, but schools here in America need a revamp when it comes to Black history and how it's taught to our children. I believe more and more African Americans are choosing to homeschool their children because of this.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so, again, opportunity alert. Imagine what collaboration partnership in education can look like, where we start building our own curriculums, right? Where we start designing our own system and educational tools and materials. We need to be more intentional about that. But I believe that that is also one of the greatest opportunities of our time. And to really start owning our history, our traditions, our culture. We need ownership, not just in business, but in what you're talking about as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Ashley Kirkwood, and I run a company called Speak Your Way to Cash, where we teach corporate sales training to entrepreneurs so they can land 5- and 6-figure corporate contracts.
Amazing. Ooh. Is that thunder?
And the world responds. to sign. So we took 60 entrepreneurs to Ghana in January of this year and hosted an event on site with 600 Ghanaian entrepreneurs and did live business coaching with them. Wow. We are taking back hopefully 100 in 2028. I just signed a contract for that. But while there, I was offered, hey, can you invest in this oil refinery? Can you buy this land? Can you buy this? And for me, the hesitation came from not having a process by which to vet opportunities before exposing our community and myself to that. One of our clients is, she's very dialed into the Ghanaian stock market, so she's been educating our community on that. But for other opportunities like oil investments and things that aren't a part of the traditional stock market, even in Ghana, what is your process for vetting partners and vetting investments that we should follow?
That's a great question. And let me just start up by saying that as much as we talk about opportunity, right, the risk is also very real. And like any investment, please don't go in blindly. Please don't go in, and partner with someone just because, they're Black as well and you think no, please. Do your due diligence. That is so, so important. And I think one of the things that I always tell entrepreneurs is try not to get into investments that you don't have any knowledge or expertise in as a precaution. Right? Because you want to understand the market, the industry as much as you can. And if it's not something that you know a lot about, then you don't have the information that you need to make informed decisions about the investment, right? And so that is one of the things that I always advocate for. But also, it takes time to find the right partners. Relationship building and trust is a big part of the process. You may need to go to Ghana or wherever you're thinking of investing more than once or twice, right? Just to establish that connection and make sure that you have a bridge, or someone that you can really trust there. So I think that's really important, but the risk is very real. So don't walk in blindly. Just take your time to really establish the right relationships. And again, opportunity alert, right? For a platform where you can vet opportunities, startups to invest in and all of that, right? Where the diaspora can just tap into to invest in these credible, opportunities on the ground. So that would be my recommendation for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Okay, back to the side.
Hello, hi. My name is Dr. Pamela Buchanan, and I'm a physician. I'm a digital health tech consultant, and I oftentimes will have the opportunity to consult digital tech companies. I work to help Black female physicians make non-clinical income because we're in systems that burn us out, and I'd rather for us to find opportunities to work in the healthcare system, color outside the lines. I get opportunities to work with white digital tech companies, but I long to work with African and companies that are color, because I think I know what that will improve Black health overall. And I'm looking to figure out, how do I find these types of opportunities? Because the other opportunities usually find me.
Wow. Whew. Okay, first of all, I don't know if you mentioned this or not. Have you been to Ghana yet? Have you traveled to Ghana?
I have not.
Okay, so that's your first step. Your first step, before you make any investment, please visit the country. Wherever please, that is a must. Okay, so I would say the first thing is go there, visit for yourself, meet with the people that you're trying to partner with, meet with them, understand the problem better, right? And develop your blueprint from there. I think that once you've had that opportunity for the face-to-face interaction, and there's just something about being on the ground. There's just something about when that air hits you when you get off the plane and you're home, all of these ideas, just start coming. And so you may go in from one perspective, but then come out with a much more expanded vision of what is possible, right? So I would say that is the first step. I do think with what you're doing, the opportunity is real, not just in Ghana, but on the continent. That is a sector that is growing and it's booming. And so definitely visiting and seeing what the opportunity looks like on the ground would be your first step.
Thank you. But visit who to do what? What is the first step? Just go
Visit Ghana,
yeah,
yes.
You have to get there. Yeah.
Visit Ghana.
Yeah. If I can add, if you For one, if you've never been on the continent,
Yes.
you cannot imagine what the continent is.
Right. That's the first step.
You know, we did trips to Ghana the past 2 years, and we went in April, I believe, right? And we had Dr. Rashida and Frank. I remember they're in here somewhere. There they go. And I remember, like, as we were leaving the airport, headed to the hotel, they would sit like on the next row over, and I heard Frank saying, "Look at all the black people." And I heard her, and like, she's like, "Look at all the billboards. It's all black people on all the billboards, right?" So for one, just to be somewhere where you're no longer the minority, what it does to your spirit.
Absolutely.
And we've been, like, in this country, you are conditioned to be the minority. So just to go somewhere in that flip, it just does something psychological to you.
It does.
But then the other part, as we begin to travel across different countries, I think a part that's hard for Americans to grasp is how different each country is.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because when we went to Tanzania, that was different than it was in Ghana. When we went to Ethiopia, that was different than Tanzania. You know what I mean? So like, that part she's saying, I don't want y'all to overlook that.
Yeah.
You have to get to the continent. And then even with us, we went, and I told you, like, when I went the first time, we took our family in 2021. I was like, there's a need for what we do, but I wasn't ready to present the need because I had to figure out how to fit what we do with the people there.
Yeah.
With the cultural differences, right? The transactional differences and that piece. And to do it, I had to make more. And every time we go, earlier this year was our third time going.
Yeah.
And we and Ronnie were like, we feel like we got it now. We knew where to eat. We knew what to eat.
Right,
we knew where to go. We knew the vibe. We knew, how to communicate, how to navigate. So you got to get there.
You got to get there.
And
also that Africa, Africa is 54 countries with different regulations, right?
Yes.
And so what may work in Ghana may not work in Nigeria. And you may actually, once you visit, you may learn that, it might be actually easier for me to enter this market in Nigeria than Ghana because of the different regulations, right? So understanding the landscape, the markets, the regions, what is more, open to the type of work and expertise that you want to bring to the market now is really important because that's one of the challenges in Africa, right? You're dealing with 54 different countries.
Hey, to my team in the back, can someone let me know if the time is accurate? Thank you. We'll go to the side. Dr. Tracy.
Thank you very much for this conversation. I'm Dr. Tracy, America's burn surgeon and the Chief Housing Officer of MedSurf Co-Living Solutions. I'm also the first TSP pitch competition winner from 2025. Yes. So my company helps hosts find money in the clutter and spare rooms while providing a safety net and a haven for medical learners on their mission to fulfill their purpose so that they can practice in their purpose and not to pay back loans. So I work in the housing space. And so one of the things that I'm going to preface this is I have not made that journey to the continent.
Okay.
I do get that same sanctuary when I've made journeys into the Caribbean and had that same feeling of not being a minority. So my question in something like housing, right? I've learned how to find a niche in the housing market in America, right? Which is a system that is broken, as we've talked about from your talk and from Pepper's talk. How do you anticipate and project what the housing needs, or if there's a opportunity in the housing space on another continent that is made up of 54 different countries without that classic American exploitation? Because how do I use that money loves speed when there's 54 different versions of what is a housing need?
Wow. So first of all, the housing market or just real estate industry in general is one of the most booming, right, industries in Africa. And it goes back to what I mentioned in my speech about the demographic growth, right? If 1 in 4, people on earth will be African by 2050, what does that mean? Housing, more people, housing, right? And so the opportunity is real. In terms of how to address, what you're asking specifically, I mean, I can speak for Ghana, right? And Ghana, from a policy level, right, is thinking about how to address some of those challenges. And a lot of the governments are trying to put in place policies to incentivize entrepreneurs who are building for specific industries, right? Or whether it's commercial property or, for the middle class or residences, whatever it is. So I would say start by looking at the policy level, what some of these countries are doing, what they're incentivizing, and how you can tap in that, how that aligns with what you're doing. But, I don't have a lot of information on like specific numbers or what countries would be the best to invest in right now. But what I would say is that it is a massive opportunity. There are a lot of entrepreneurs on the ground right now taking advantage of that. So start by doing your research and seeing which market aligns more with your goals and priorities.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so guys, I have some good news and some bad news. Which one y'all want first? Okay, well, I was only going to give you the bad anyway. I was going to give you that first. So the bad news is that we're at our time. So we won't be able to take any more questions. But this means we have to have you back.
Yes, I would love to be back. And I'm also around, right,
yes.
for those who want to stay around.
And we're talking about finding ways we can partner and do some things together. So you'll definitely be seeing her and her brand tied into what we do. But I told you I had some good news as well, right?
Yeah.
Y'all want the good news? You sound like you may or may not want the good. Like, do you really want the good news? All right. Well, the good news is that she mentioned earlier this best-selling report that they've created. And what we're doing is we've made sure, we've partnered together, that every single one of you is going to get access to the State of Africa 2026.
Yes.
So, normally you'd have to pay for it, right? I bought and paid for it, myself. But we are gifting it to all of our conference attendees. So you can scan the QR code and get it. If you, for some reason, have a problem and don't have access, we'll also send it out via email as well so that you get it.
Yes.
Any last words with us? And then, too, please share how they can follow you and how they can join your movement.
Absolutely. First of all, this I believe is going to be very helpful. It has a lot of insights and data that I hope it's helpful for you as you think about your Africa strategy, right? But don't just end there. Connect with us. We're going to continue the conversation to see how we can continue to, help you all with whatever it is that you want to do in Africa. And taking that first step, right, visiting, that's really important. But I just want to really end by thanking you for seeing, seriously, for seeing the importance of this and bringing this opportunity to your audience. I mean, this ecosystem is so powerful. And this is exactly what we need in this moment to close the gap. So I appreciate you. I appreciate Ronnie for this platform and allowing me to bring this story, right, to our people. So thank you very much. And be sure to follow me on YouTube. We are PanaGenius TV. I drop a new episode every day, probably except for today because I'm here with you all. But new episodes drop every day. And then also I'm on socials as Sandra Babu-Boateng. So please connect with me. I'd love to hear from you all. Thank you so much.
Please stand on your feet. Give a warm round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. That was great.